Hello, everyone. My name is Daisy Garcia, and my presentation is on the impacts of deforestation on a global scale. So, defining deforestation. In 1992, the Rio Earth Summit was held in Brazil, and representatives from more than 150 countries gathered to tackle climate change. As a result of economic development and globalization, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was established to address rising environmental health issues and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Deforestation is one of the many contributors of climate change and can be defined as the process of clearing or cutting trees over a large area. Trees are able to store a multitude of carbon, so when trees are cut down, carbon is released into the atmosphere. Carbon emissions are one of the primary drivers of climate change. Major causes of deforestation that also contribute to climate change are cattle ranching, agriculture, and logging. So with deforestation comes effects on human health and risk of disease. Malaria, for example, studies have revealed an estimated 20% risk of malaria from global consumption and international trade in deforestation implicated commodities, with approximately 80% accounting for deforestation linked consumption. Export commodities such as timber and coffee can be linked to an increased risk of malaria. Other studies have shown that an estimated 10% increase in cleared forest area can lead to a 3.3% increase in malaria association. Economic development and a growing population have provided pathways for the transmission of this disease. More than 90% of malaria caused in humans occur in the Amazon basin, Greater Mekong, and Congo basin. Malaria incidences can be directly linked to deforestation due to exploitation of resources, land occupation, and migration. Places like Nigeria are at an increased risk of malaria exposure due to exports. The exportation of crops and tobacco from Tanzania also contributes to the risk of deforestation-linked malaria in over 5 million people. Scrub typhus is another disease. According to the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there were over 110,000 scrub typhus cases reported from 2001 to 2017. Deforestation is a major risk factor of the disease because secondary growth of scrub vegetation can increase the number of mites and rodents. The transmission of scrub typhus can occur among agricultural work environments. According to a study, areas with more deforestation had greater rates of scrub typhus incidence. The conservation of forests, however, can result in public health benefits, such as suppressing the risk of scrub typhus. With disease also comes the effect of labor productivity and on human health. Forests play a major role in regulating local climate and temperature increase. Deforestation can impact crop yields that can further develop into food insecurities. Research suggests that tropical forest conservation and reforestation is crucial to reduce and prevent local temperature increase. For example, studies conducted in the rural communities among the island of Borneo, part of Indonesia, revealed that residents expressed the importance of reducing deforestation to maintain cool temperatures and prevent heat-related illness and stress among vulnerable populations. So these are a few key components that are experienced or impacted from deforestation. Forest cover change can degrade the quality of air and climate. Warming can cause shifts in species, disease transmission, and increased demand of electricity and water resources. As temperatures rise from the greenhouse effect caused by high levels of carbon dioxide and other air pollutants, changes in climate and weather are one of the many impacts of global warming. Forests are also home to more than 60,000 tree species, with more than 58% originating from single country endemics. Deforestation places habitats, biodiversity, and wildlife at an increased risk of environmental degradation and species endangerment. When trees are cut down and deforestation practices are in place, the destruction of homelands threatens the daily lifestyle of Indigenous people. Indigenous communities often find themselves being evicted from their land. Indigenous areas that are protected by law are under increasing threat due to illegal mining operations. The International Union for Conservation of Nature recently approved Indigenous people's call for action with Motion 129. This motion calls on members of the IUCN to protect at least 80% of the Amazon by 2025. Government conflict and economic drive contribute to the lack of change in policies, conservation of forests, and protection of indigenous land. Even with interventions and environmental policies, places like Brazil continue to experience high rates of deforestation. So these are a few drivers of deforestation. One of them is logging. Logging challenges current and future progress towards conservation and deforestation. With an increase of illegal logging, an estimate of 29 national forests can expect a decline in harvested areas. Countries like Brazil grant timber concessions to promote sustainability throughout logging practices. Logging concessions have the potential to create revenue to fund protected areas. Deforestation among agriculture reduces rainfall and therefore causes a decrease in revenue from agricultural practices in the Amazon. If action is not implemented to create reform in policy-making decisions, the southern Brazilian Amazon is at an increased risk of losing approximately 56% of forest land by 2050. Evidence suggests the correlation of forest loss and causation and rainfall reduction with a decreased length of rainy season can attribute to 10% of forest loss. So cattle ranching. To see improved change in the processes of deforestation, environmental health professionals and policymakers must implement effective designs of policies that are inclusive to spatial dimension and impacts that cause interferences. When cattle ranching was identified as a main driver for deforestation in past studies, several policies were created, such as zero deforestation commitments and command and control policies. The effectiveness of these policies, however, is challenged by spillover effects of indirect land use and leakage. Policies such as the soy moratorium and the cattle agreements were implemented to tackle deforestation in connection to soy and cattle supply chains. The cultivation of soy and herds of cattle interfere with the effectiveness of these policies. Over time, laws, regulations, and policies are updated, and new compliances are required to be enforced throughout forest management and services. A few examples are the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 and the National Forest Management Act of 1976. These policies ensure the public ability to participate in project planning. Another example is the United States Code, Title 16, Chapter 2, that covers a range of laws on the governing and administration of forest services. The National Historic Preservation Act provides security to resources and historic and Indian land. In terms of prevention and intervention, in November of 2021, the U.S. Department of Agriculture declared it is taking action to repeal the 2020 Alaska Roadless Rule to restore protections of more than 9 million acres of roadless areas in the Tongass National Forest. Restoring roadless protections benefits ecological and cultural sustainability as well as forest conservation. Intervention among deforestation practices is important in preventing a rise in environmental health issues. Government intervention and economic stability is needed to assess the needs of local communities. Failed systems of government, poor implementation of rules and regulations, and also economic incentives have developed a global damage to forest and biodiversity. In regards to global efforts, as of recently, world leaders have committed to end deforestation by 2030 in the COP26 Climate Summit. Strengthening efforts will help countries meet the Paris Agreement goals in reducing climate change and global temperatures. A total of more than 140 countries have pledged to accelerate restoration of forests and ecosystems, reduce vulnerability, implement sustainable agricultural policies, reassess financial commitments, and align financial goals with deforestation and climate needs.